Well, hi, my name is Nate Manuel, and I want to welcome you to a special edition here of
Thank you.
our podcast. And we've got our good friend Tony Hoops. So, Tony, you've been a part of the church for how long?
Well, we've probably been coming 15 years.
Okay, so
Yeah.
longer than me. Thank
Longer
you.
than you?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's awesome. You and Kathy are you're great people. You have great hearts, and
Thank you.
just super thankful to have a conversation with you here.
Yeah.
Before we get into the conversation,
Yeah.
right now we're in the middle of something we call 21 Days of Prayer. So I just want to,
Right.
let's kind of talk about what that is.
Sure.
21 Days of Prayer is a time where we intentionally seek God and trust Him to move powerfully in our lives and in our church. And of course, this is something that you're probably going to share with us. We should be doing this all the time, right?
Yeah, and I was going to go there eventually.
Yeah, for sure. But
yeah.
I think for all of us, it's important just even to have a couple times a year where we're like, hey, let's come back, let's recenter. Maybe we got off track or we got busy or whatever. And so as a church, we like to do this in January as we kind of start something new. We want to put God first. We want to kind of start off on the right foot. And then typically at the end of summer, going back into the school year, it's another place where we're like, hey, God, we're going to start something new. Let's put you first. Let's connect with you.
Correct.
So those are kind of our rhythms for 21 Days of Prayer. And we've been doing this for a while as a church.
Yes.
So my first question for you is how have you connected with God, or what kind of role does that play in your life?
Well, the whole idea of just prayer in general. Nate, I don't know if you remember Ed McCauley.
Oh yeah, I
Or
love Ed.
some of you
He's
don't have
amazing.
no idea who Ed is or was. Ed was one of the elders here at the church years ago. But I was in a life group, men's group with Ed years and years ago. And he would always challenge us constantly and simply, so what you praying for? What you praying for? And if you remember Ed, he wasn't afraid to hit you over the head with thoughts and
sure.
ideas. He challenged you.
Yep.
And because of Ed and other reasons, I realized my prayer life had to just improve. I had to step it up.
Cool.
So that's kind of where that all kind of began, was through and with Ed. And since that time, we go into this 21 days of prayer. And for me personally, this may come across a little arrogant, but it's not like I do anything in addition, because I do try to spend, time in prayer pretty much every day. One of the other things that Ed challenged all of us in his groups to do was to journal. So often my journals just turn out to be daily, what are my prayer thoughts? So, sometimes that could be 2 minutes. Sometimes it could be 18 minutes, just depending what's on my mind and heart, and I just write it down. And then I'd always go back some point in time later and read it, and I would see God's response to my prayers.
That's awesome.
That was like,
That's powerful.
oh my.
Yeah.
You even forget you pray some things, and then you reread your own handwriting,
Yeah.
and you look back and, oh my gosh, he answered these prayers, and here's how.
Yeah.
That's powerful.
And that can grow your faith,
Oh my.
when you look back, but then also the next time you step into a challenge, it's like, okay, I remember he's been faithful and he's shown up in my life personally in these different ways. And so that's just a really good habit to be in, to be able to go back and to kind of mark those moments where God has done something in your life.
Yeah.
I think it helps you proceed. That's cool.
Yeah, for the people watching and listening, trusting that some people will really truly take this to heart and step into 21 days. And my guess is there's going to be some who realize, I need to take this beyond just these 21 days.
Right.
And obviously that's the hope, that's the plan, and I'm sure there will be people who do so.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We're all challenged. Thank you, Tony. This isn't the 21 days. This is the, the lifetime life structure. I love that.
Yeah, thank you.
So Tony, really this conversation that we're having today, it started probably a little over a year ago. We were talking off camera.
Exactly.
And you had an experience. You experienced something at another church. You heard a talk, and you came to me with this idea. And so, what is that? Like, what was what was that original idea? What's the heart behind it?
There's a lot to that. First of all, I need to say thank you to you. When I approached you that time a year ago, we know each other. We knew each other, but it was kind of off the cuff, and you could have so easily just, I got something to do, etc. But you gave me time. You listened. You listened to my crazy thoughts and ideas, and you were very open, and I thank you for that. I'm humbled and honored to be part of this and to share, what's on my heart.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
You're. I think a lot of times we have, God puts a little something on our hearts, and for whatever reason, we hold that back, or we hold it to ourselves. So thank you for
You're welcome.
being willing to go like, hey, I think this is something we need to do. So
Yeah.
I'm excited for you to share this.
Thank you. But this whole idea is that if you remember, I came to you and I just simply mentioned that it kind of been put on my heart, whether it was Macaulay or whoever, that we need to consider prayer in a different direction. By that, I mean, a lot of times people, myself, etc., someone attends church thinking, I need help, I need prayer. This is the place I can go to be supported and encouraged and for someone to pray for me, which is beautiful. That's what the Bible tells us, to cast all your cares upon him because he cares for us.
Yeah.
And so that, of course, is a huge piece of the puzzle. But there's a flip side to that I think sometimes people don't understand and realize. And what I'm here to share with you today, as I did a year ago, the thought of maybe we need to look at not only asking for prayers for ourselves, but praying for others, especially for our pastors. I don't know if I've ever told you this, Nate, but I pray for you, not every day.
Yeah. Well, you can if you'd like. I'll take it.
But you are in my prayer list.
Thank you.
That it's not uncommon for me to sit down and pray and include Ben Snyder, lead pastor, in our prayers.
Yeah, my son's 3 years old.
Yeah.
This is so interesting because,
Yeah.
I think you can know a little bit about your prayer life when you hear your kids pray. So when they're just praying for things or whatever, it's like, you need to set a better example.
Right.
But
Right.
my 3-year-old son Hudson right now has been praying for Ben probably like every other day.
That's
and it's
awesome.
so stinking cool.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's, I think, helpful for me because it's easy if you've been praying for years or you're brand new.
Sure.
It's easy to get stuck in a rut.
Yeah.
Like, man, what do I pray about? And so 21 days of prayer, those daily prayer prompts, if you're not a part of that right now, and I encourage you can still join that. We'll talk about how to do that later.
Yeah.
But this is one of those prayer prompts that we put out there, praying for your leaders, praying for your pastors.
Yeah.
So why for you do you think that that's so important?
Why do I think it's so important? I think we just need to realize and understand that our pastors, yourself, Ben Snyder, our campus pastors, they're people too. You guys have issues.
We're very people.
Yeah.
Definitely.
You guys have issues just like we do. And when
Yeah.
I say we, I mean a regular attendee. And
Right.
I think sometimes we look at our pastors or as our church leaders like you and, they've got everything together. Their life is so perfect. I bet their home was wonderful. I bet every night they sit around the table and pray the Lord's Prayer. I know those
It's
things.
not like that for me. Maybe our other pastors.
And the point isn't all that, to realize and understand, to pray for everybody, and including the pastors. For me, it started this idea of stepping further into the idea of praying for our pastors, kind of really went to a next level when Ben took over the church, replaced Lee. Because again, Macaulay had always challenged us, be sure you're praying for XYZ.
Yeah.
Beyond just your gimme, or help me. Anyhow, I realized that when Ben stepped into those shoes, those were some pretty big shoes to fill.
Absolutely.
And he would be hit with things that like, oh my, where do I go? What do I do?
Yeah.
So I just remember simply beginning to pray for Ben and to give him courage, to give him wisdom, for God to surround him with good people such as yourself that can advise, that can counsel. And then beyond that, beyond just praying for him, there was one day I went to the church website, I found his email, and I simply sent him a message. Hey, Ben, we know each other, etc., but I just wanted you to know in this transition, I prayed for you today. And I just remember his response. Wow. It wasn't much of a response, but you could tell it was heartfelt. Wow, I really needed that. Not sure anyone's ever told me that before.
Yeah.
So I just remember that, and that kind of stuck with me. And since then, I've kind of upped that. By that I mean is not only have I prayed now for Ben, I've begun to pray for people like yourself. I've begun to pray for the campus pastors. Luke here at Perrysburg, Chris Bainey at Findlay, etc., to consider lifting them up in prayer as well. So it's not more than just our lead pastor.
Yeah.
And then there's the people, I'm going to say down the line, example, that the people who run our kids ministry.
Yeah.
Have you ever prayed for them? And the importance in that, the value of that. Then on top of that all is to maybe even consider going a next step further. Not only just to do the actual praying, but somehow connect with that individual and let them know that you did it. Mm-hmm. It's a source of encouragement. It's a source of support. It's a source of strength. It's not uncommon for me to go up to Ben after a message, after a sermon. Ben, that was awesome today, whatever. Or to send Luke Shortridge a message. We just appreciate what you do for our church.
Yeah.
to just,
It
acknowledge
truly is such a gift.
Mm-hmm.
So if that is a practice that you step into, or you are practicing that now, praying for somebody, just letting them know is a gift, and it means a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Encouraging words.
Yeah.
They're great that you think those, but unless you share that with the other person, it's not necessarily that gift that it could be for them. So I'd love that.
Yeah. It was about a year ago now when we were last year in the 21 days of prayer. I remember sending a group email to all the campus pastors. Very short, simple. Just, hey, I prayed for you guys today. And most of them responded. I think they all did, quite frankly.
Yeah.
But it was nothing over the top, but it was, wow, I really appreciated that.
Yeah.
That was really nice to know that people are thinking about me.
Yeah.
To realize that I've got a life too that isn't always together.
Right.
And I need support. I want support.
Yeah.
So,
Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I've got some stats here. So you've experienced something at Seacoast, which is another church that you experience when you're not in Ohio.
In Ohio, yeah. And Kathy and I have been blessed having a place down south.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah.
And they have a whole program for pastors that they bring in, right?
Exactly.
So what's kind of the heart behind that?
Well, to back up just a second, you mentioned these percentages of these numbers.
Yeah.
Through this whole process of me praying for pastors and considering that and encouraging others to do it, I remember hearing a podcast once from, I think it was Craig Rochelle, where this was like 2 or 3 years ago, just when kind of COVID was making an impact on church attendance and et cetera. We lived that.
Yeah.
And I remember Greg in his podcast simply mentioned that 30% of all pastors are strongly considering stepping away because they feel they feel worthless. They feel like they can't handle it, that it's not working. They feel disconnected. And wow. And then I think we've got some other stats here from Barnum. The
Barna group. These are just some stats to back up why, this is important. 42% of pastors have seriously thought about quitting ministry in the last year. And that number has risen significantly, jumping from 29% to 42% in just 18 months. And that doesn't include the pastors who have actually quit. And pastors are not alone. So this is why not only praying for your pastors, but just leaders in general. According to another survey, 70% of C-suite leaders are considering quitting. So that's your CEO, CMO, CFOs, and other chief positions. That's a pretty staggering number.
Exactly.
And you even think about if that statistic translated to Cedar Creek, 42%, that's really significant. That's 40% of your campus team.
Yeah.
If you've got, 6 or 7 people on staff there, that's, half of your team. So I'm not saying that's where we're at, but you just think about that statistics. That's pretty large.
Yeah. And so in that is like almost a no-brainer. Why shouldn't we be praying for these people?
Yeah.
They have needs just like we do. They're struggling with life just like we are. Mm-hmm. So lift them up in prayer. And God promises to answer, to respond. It's all a piece of the puzzle.
Yeah. Here's some specific things, going back to that survey really quick.
Right.
These are the top 4 reasons for these pastors that are stepping away. Number 1 is the immense stress of the job. Number 2 is feeling alone or isolated. And I think that's something that I think I have seen in ministry.
Yeah.
When you're constantly pouring out and shepherding and trying to help other people, it can get to a place where it feels like you're very alone and isolated. And even that perception that like Ben's got it all together, he's perfect, he's the one that's teaching all the time. That can be and he's very healthy. Like I see him in front of people and I see him behind the scenes. But I can see how that can get very lonely and you kind of, you're constantly pouring out. The third main reason is current political divisions. I think Ben handles this really well.
I do too.
And often, people from both sides of whatever issue is being talked about come at Ben.
Yeah.
So I can see that one being very stressful. And the fourth one is just the effect of the role in the family. So, especially for those that are like Ben, that are in the spotlight all the time and all those perceptions and opinions that are constantly coming at you and your family. Those are some big reasons that I can see why some pastors get to that place.
Right. In response to that fourth thing there, to understand and remember that, pastors have lives beyond the church. Sometimes I think we, the attendees, look at the pastors. They are the pastor of the church and they have nothing else going on in their life. To realize, yeah, they do. Example, one of the things I pray for you guys often, for Ben, for yourself, for the campus pastors, is simply that you have wisdom and know how to balance my job responsibilities versus my home, parent, husband responsibilities. Because I think it would be very easy for you to get so wrapped up in your job at the church that you forget the family. And so that's a part of my prayer too for all of you guys. Yeah.
I appreciate that.
Yeah. You mentioned earlier Seacoast.
Yeah.
Kind of go there.
Yeah.
Kind of explain what that is. Seacoast, for some of you who don't know, is basically Cedar Creek of Charleston.
Yeah.
It really is.
They're a great church.
It's an awesome church. I think Ben and Josh
they're buddies.
are like good friends.
That's awesome. Yeah.
I think they do things together, etc. Anyhow, 8 years ago-ish, we heard of Seacoast on one of our trips down there, and we went to visit, and it was like one of those immediately. Fell in love with it, felt I was at home, just like it was Cedar Creek of the South.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So when Kathy and I are down there, that's often where we will attend. And this was about 1.5 years ago. It all feeds into this idea of praying for pastors. It's kind of interesting how God weaves this together. But we were there on a Sunday morning, and the retired founding pastor preached that particular Sunday. And he mentioned this place called the Pastor's Retreat. And then Kathy and I like, what's that? And we got to learn. We started asking some questions about some people we know there. And basically, this pastor who now founded Seacoast is now retired. He has this passion of feeding into younger pastors, helping them, encouraging them, etc. And in all that, he, along with a group of people, bought 66 acres with this huge monster, I'm not going to say mansion, but it kind of is a mansion that's out in the middle of nowhere, which is truly a pastor's retreat. It's a place for pastors to go, to get away, to reconnect, to energize, to be supported, to share their pains and hurts and seek advice. It's wonderful.
I'm thankful that they're doing that. That's especially thinking through those statistics. That's an important ministry they've got going on.
Yeah. So you can see for me how this idea of praying for pastors, and I heard that, it's like, oh my, this kind of all fits together here, doesn't it? Anyhow, I continued to ask, Kathy and I both continued to ask more questions, and we were eventually put in connection with one of the lead volunteers. And so there was one of their pastor retreat weeks. Pastors go there for like 4 or 5 days at a time. And it's just the pastors. They don't bring families. So it's just this group of guys who, from all over the country, gather together. Anyhow, Kathy and I just simply asked, could we come sometime and just watch, shadow, observe? Let's see what this place is all about. Because Kathy and I wonder if there's a fit for us, if there's something we can do.
Yeah.
So we wanted to see it in action. So one of the evenings, I had that opportunity to go in behind the closed doors, to be that fly on the wall, and to listen in and to partake on these things that these pastors are pouring out their heart over. And that just fed this idea of the need and the importance of praying for them. Do you mind if I share a few of the stories with you?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. One of them was, well, first of all, you need to picture this. They do this every night. The pastors are there for like 4 or 5 days. Every evening, they sit together at this huge table, maybe 15 guys. I think the night I was there were 12 or 13. But anyhow, it's just a place where Greg Surratt, who is kind of behind it all, just goes around the table and, okay, so what's in your heart and mind? It's like, oh boy, this is kind of weird.
Yeah.
But it was fabulous and interesting to watch. I remember the night I was there, the very first pastor, he was the first one. So you could sense it's like,
it's a tough role to be in. Like,
how much do I share?
Do I overshare?
Yeah. He didn't share much.
Yeah.
But this very first guy mentioned something to me that we've already kind of briefly talked about, is he said, I come from a church that is a very, very small church. I have myself, I have a secretary, and I think he said he had one other female kids ministry leader. He said, you guys, talking to this fellow pastors around this huge table, he says, you have no idea how much I need this. He says, in my job, I have nobody to connect with. I have nobody to bounce ideas off of. I have nobody to just talk about issues. And he said, the value of this alone is so valuable for me. You have no idea what this means to me. And part of the idea of this retreat is for these guys to build connection. So they can, when they leave, they can continue to reach out to each other.
Yeah.
So that's the first guy. And I'm thinking, wow, I never thought of that before.
Yeah.
Yeah, pastors need that. We all think that they've just got it together and they can handle it all. And so that was the first guy. A couple guys later, it's his turn to share things going on. And he gets into the story about how he and his wife are having problems with their 13-year-old daughter. And right away, it's like, oh, okay, yeah, we all know 13-year-olds.
Yeah, I'm not quite there, but I'm 2 years away.
Yeah, yeah.
It's coming.
But this daughter started sharing with the dad, the pastor of the church, how she felt her dad was putting more time and effort and energy into the church than he was towards her. And it was causing...
That's a tough pill to swallow from your child. Wow.
Yeah. And he said that the tension that started to build between he and his wife, he said it kind of started to creep into the strength of their marriage through conversation. And then, his wife would, maybe we need to talk about this, etc. And you could just sense that, oh my, just another reason and an understanding of why we need to pray for our pastors.
Yeah.
There's things going on that we just don't comprehend and understand. To continue that now, I'll give you one more story. Again, this was so we've gone through like 3 or 4 guys, a few others talked, and then we get to this 6th guy, I'll say. And it was his turn, and he was an emotional wreck. I bet he just wept bitterly and very for like 45 seconds. He didn't even know what to say or how to start.
Wow.
And it's like, I'm sitting over on the wall, kind of out of the way, a fly in the wall. And I'm thinking, what in the world's going on?
Yeah.
And you can see the other guys around this table, their hearts are going out to him. It's like, get it together, dude. What's going on? He finally gets himself together and he says, you guys have no idea what I'm going through right now. He says, I have failed my church. I don't feel I'm making a difference. We've had conversation in just the last few weeks about closing our doors.
Wow.
Because I can't do it anymore. I can't handle it. It's too much. I'm no good at what I do. And it's like, oh my.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
that'll open your eyes. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Pastors, whether they're at Cedar Creek or another church, we're just human beings, just like you. We're the same. Yeah. And so I think a good question is, how do we respond to that? So you've painted a picture of importance, and I think committing to this in this 21 days, this is something that we're journeying. Hopefully, you're journeying on, right? With us together as a church, where we're praying for specific things every day. But then I think, one of the areas that God wants us to all grow in is just the way that we communicate, connect, and are in relationship with Him. And I think prayer is one of those things. And so, as you've talked about, there are times where we're going to come before God, like we need His help. We need Him to intervene. There are things outside of our control, and He invites us, challenges us to trust Him, not just to figure everything out on our own. Yeah. Just that trusting versus trying posture in our faith. But I think there's that other side that you've talked about this whole time, which is not just praying for those things that are in this sphere of your world, but it's like, who are those people or what are those situations outside of yourself that God may be placing on your heart, like He's placed pastors on your heart?
We need to remember that often Jesus challenged people with the words or the thoughts of unto others or one to another. Yeah. That alone just pushes the idea that prayer isn't just about me. Right. And there's nothing wrong with that, as we all know. Yeah. But looking outside that box, who are the people around me that I should be praying for, or need my prayers? Yep. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Good stuff, man. Yeah. Well, as we wrap up, there's a couple things, resources we want to point you all to. So if you're not currently journeying with us on this 21 days of prayer, there's 2 places you can go and jump in. You're not too late. And I think prayer has been really powerful in your life. I know it's been really powerful in my life. And so 2 places you can go, wherever you download apps. If you don't have the Cedar Creek app, download that, and you can engage in the 21-day prayer resources there through the Cedar Creek app, or you can go to our website, go to cedarcreek.tv/21 days. And if you're in a spot right now, you're listening to this and you're like, man, I want to get to the place where I can look at, ex-pastor or, Joe Schmo on the road and pray for him, but I'm just really struggling and
I need prayer right now, we would love to pray for you. And so you can always submit a prayer request. This is 24 hours a day, every day of the year. You can submit a request by going on the same app, the Cedar Creek app, or you can go to that same website and submit a prayer request there. And we've got a team of people that have the spiritual gift of intercession that are praying for those prayer requests every single day. And so we'd love to have you take advantage of that. And to close out here, thanks for joining us. And just remember that prayer is our first response, not our last resort.
Wonderful.
Tony, thank you so much.
Thank you, Nate. Appreciate it. Yeah.
Have a great day.